There's been a focus on China's attempt to embed itself in the Pacific as a major player for quite a while now, and recently we saw another bit of video emerge. This was actually back in 2017, which showed a huge number of Chinese police officers coming over to Fiji to take Chinese nationals in that country back to China, essentially to prosecute them for an alleged scam that they were involved in. Now, that has again raised questions about the level of freedom of movement given to Chinese police in Fiji and the closeness of the Chinese and Fijian police forces. Now, the new-ish government from Sitveni Rabuka, it's been in office now for about 15 months or so, it's taken a more sceptical approach to China. There was originally a suggestion from the Prime Minister that he was actually going to tear up that entire agreement between Fiji and China that allowed police cooperation. In the end, it hasn't taken that step, but Mr. Rabuka told the ABC in an interview earlier this week he is in other ways trying to cycle back on that relationship. In particular, he's made the decision, at least at some point in recent months, to make sure that Chinese police officers who were embedded with Fiji have been sent back to China. So there is a bit of distancing going on here. Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister, Sitveni Rabuka, explaining the steps that he's taken and why he's taken those steps.
I'm comfortable in the sense that I found out that they were having some officers of the People's Republic of China police embedded in our police headquarters, which I did not know. I did not know how it came about, and I was uncomfortable only because we have different systems, legal systems and policing and investigative methods. So I asked for that to be reviewed, and those officers who were working with our senior police officers in police headquarters were repatriated.
So, Stephen, what did the Prime Minister have to say more broadly about China's role in the Pacific?
Well, Mr. Rabuka has been walking a fine line here. When he first got into office, the relationship with the Chinese embassy and senior officials was very, very cold indeed. Since then, he's been trying to rebuild ties, in particular his intent on China ramping up its investment in Fiji. He also wants more development assistance from Beijing. But he's also made it very clear that he's uneasy about China as a major strategic player in the region, particularly when it comes to security and policing. He's spoken about how Beijing could exert over time a potentially malign influence on the region. Now, he's couched this in very broad terms, but he says if other players like China come in, then eventually what you might see is that those democratic values that are at the centre of political systems in Fiji, well, they may be eroded over time, particularly in smaller Pacific Island countries. So it is a bit of a balancing act from Sitveni Rabuka, but he is trying to clearly draw a line in the sand, and it's a line that Australia is very happy to draw as well. It says it's very happy for China to be a big player in the Pacific, particularly economically. We've got no choice in the matter, of course. It's a massive market and a huge investor in the region, but we're also trying to make it clear that security and police should be a no-go zone. Now, that's a difficult battle to fight, but it's one that Australia is intent on waging.
Meanwhile, Stephen, we've had a development in the sentencing of Fiji's former Prime Minister, Frank Bainimarama.
Yeah, that's right. Frank Bainimarama, as well as the former police chief, were essentially convicted a while ago for perverting the course of justice. Now, he's gone in front of the courts this morning. There's been speculation, because of the heaviness of the potential sentences, that he could be facing a lengthy jail term, perhaps up to 5 years, but that hasn't happened. Instead, what we saw this morning is essentially the magistrate say that she saw this as a very minor affair and is essentially had his conviction discharged. So he's been not entirely given an absolute clean bill of health, but essentially the magistrate has said that this is a minor matter and that he's going to walk free without a permanent conviction being recorded. So that's a significant legal victory for the former Prime Minister, and one that unsurprisingly he and his supporters and family in Suva have welcomed.